56 yes to 44 no. The United States has voted to move ahead with the trial, the impeachment trial of the President Trump. That means 6 Republicans voted with the Democrats to proceed. That is not enough. We get to the question of the impeachment conviction. That will require pass 67 votes. But right now, 56. Let's quickly turn to our analysts who have been very patiently with us all afternoon listening to these arguments. Victoria Nurse, Elizabeth Chris, Frank Bowman, Michael Allen. I'm just going to quickly come to each one of you. Victoria Nurse, can you first? Can you listen?
Family, this is Brian Lewis once again. Yep, I'm not muted. Perfect. In today's stream, I'm going to cover Trump's second impeachment trial, which just wrapped mere seconds ago. Thank you for joining me. The U.S. Senate is hearing or heard arguments from House prosecutors and Trump's defense team on the constitutionality of whether or not a former president can be tried by the Senate after leaving office. The trial began today after the House impeached Trump a second time on the 13th of January, making Trump the first president in U.S. history to be impeached twice. So what we're going to do is we are going to go live really quick and see what's going on. They just, like I said, mere seconds ago, the Senate just announced or just voted by a pretty good margin, and even got some Republicans on board as well, that proceeding with this trial is constitutional. So they got the votes that they needed, the majority of votes, and it will pick up and continue tomorrow. But let us go live now.
A somewhat more emotional argument toward the end. The Republicans acknowledge, or the former president's lawyers acknowledge that they changed the order of their argument because of the final words from impeachment manager Jamie Raskin.
Well, the House managers certainly made emotional appeals, but I also think, to be honest, they made by far the better constitutional argument, grounded in far better analysis of history, text, precedent, and the like. In the end, the president's lawyers were left making a number of rather odd arguments that really didn't have anything to do with Senate jurisdiction at all. Mostly they were beating up on the House in this weird argument where they were saying, on the one hand, the House impeachment was too fast because that didn't afford the president due process. But on the other hand, it was too slow in that it left the president to be tried by the Senate. Which is it? Was it too fast or was it too slow? I don't think their arguments were at all compelling. And in the end, of course, they failed.
And Michael Allen, so much of this hinges on reading.
All right. So today was a really important day, right? First of all, something like this has never actually happened before. So it's historically relevant. And then, of course, we were going to cover at least like the last little bit of the actual live trial itself. But it looks like since we might have missed the end of it, we're going to show you guys, or in a second, we're going to go over some clips from that somebody compiled together and of the trial today, some of the highlights of the trial, and I will give my opinion, share my thoughts about that as well. And maybe tomorrow, depending on what's going on, tomorrow I might actually cover a little bit more of it, and actually while the trial actually is going on. So be on the lookout for that as well. But yeah, the really big decision today that we were looking for was whether or not the Senate would allow this trial to continue, because that's really going to dictate whether or not Trump is even potentially convicted, right? Today wasn't really so much about him being convicted. You know, this is a multi-step process. So the decision about whether or not to convict won't happen wouldn't have happened unless a majority of the Senate voted in favor of continuing the trial today. And it looks like not only did that happen, but they got 6 members of the GOP to go along with them. So that is a good sign. And and Vox actually ran an article recently showing that there might be some Republicans who are open to this and actually open to convicting Trump. So David, whenever it looks like there might be something going on the Senate floor. David, is that something interesting? Do you know?
This is just one of the clips, Brian.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to be playing the clips, and I'm going to just share my thoughts on the clips, and we will just go back and forth like that, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Senate. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Raskin. It's my honor to represent the people of Maryland 8th Congressional District in the House and also to serve as the lead House manager. And Mr. President, we will indeed reserve time for rebuttal. Thank you. Because I've been a professor of constitutional law for 3 decades, I know there are a lot of people who are dreading endless lectures about the Federalist Papers here. Please breathe easy, okay? I remember well W.H. Auden's line that a professor is someone who speaks while other people are sleeping. You will not be hearing extended lectures from me because our case is based on cold, hard facts. It's all about the facts. President Trump has sent his lawyers here today to try to stop the Senate from hearing the facts of this case.
Mm-hmm.
They want to call the trial over before any evidence is even introduced.
They don't want a trial.
Their argument is that if you commit an impeachable offense in your last few weeks in office, you do it with constitutional impunity. You get away with it. In other words, conduct that would be a high crime and misdemeanor in your first year as president, in your second year as president, in your third year as president, and for the vast majority of your fourth year as president, you can suddenly do in your last few weeks in office without facing any constitutional accountability at all.
Nope.
This would create a brand new January exception to the Constitution of the United States of America.
So there is, why am I getting close to the mic? So there is no such thing as a January exception. So I'm glad that he brought that up, because what he was saying, it was essentially a January exception was trending on Twitter, as a matter of fact. What he was saying is that what Trump's lawyers are arguing is that Trump has some sort of make-believe exception in the month of January because he was no longer in office when the impeachment articles were submitted. No, that's Trump has to be held accountable for his actions on January the 6th. And the article of impeachment against Trump is over his incitement of insurrection. Okay, if the Senate fails to convict Trump, which we will find that out in the future, if they even fail to, if they had failed to continue today's trial, right, which luckily they didn't do that. Luckily, they succeeded in accomplishing that. What they would have been doing, essentially, and the Democrats would have been doing this with a majority in the Senate, is they would have been given the green light to acts of political violence, by an outgoing president. If that outgoing president just doesn't like the fact that he's losing, or whatever reason Trump, whatever rationale he had. And of course, that's not, you can't have a sustainable government like that, man. Like, so let's not forget that people died on that day, right? So like the lawyer, like his lawyer Raskin pointed out, like there is no exception, or not his lawyer. You guys know what I mean. But like as Raskin pointed out, there's no exception to that. So yeah, that's definitely good. And I saw a comment, someone said that they don't know if the Senate is actually going to convict. We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I mean, the chances are stacked against the truth, unfortunately, but we will see for sure. So David, whenever you are ready, go ahead and play that second video.
President Trump may not know a lot.
Uh-oh, have some buffering issues.
But they certainly knew a lot about him.
Okay, we're going to give David a second here. And while he's pulling that up, I want to thank everybody for joining us on today's show. We have quite a few people watching us right now on YouTube and Twitch as well. Let me actually see if I can get Twitch's chat up. Oh, about 500 people on Twitch. So that's definitely what's up. And thank you for joining us today, Judy, White Rabbit, Kev Z, Franco, Tyler. Thank you, everybody. You guys being here makes this all worth it for sure. So, David, is that video ready?
May not know a lot about the framers, but
Okay.
Having some issues on my end. I'm going to try to get either download it or get the browser going.
Okay. So while David is doing that, the importance of today can't be understated. First and foremost, Trump should have been subpoenaed, and he wasn't. And yeah, thank you, Franco. He said Raskin's personal story was sad. And that's actually a video that we had queued up. So hopefully we'll be able to get to it. But yeah, Trump should not be getting any special treatment whatsoever. None. Like the fact that they're even just requesting him, like the New York Times. Let's see. I'll post this link in the chats. It's a really good interactive article from the New York Times, and it actually shows some really good things. Like, so for instance, the mere fact that Trump wasn't actually subpoenaed is a problem, because what happened on the 6th is not something that should be taken lightly. That's not something where you just ask somebody, hey, do you want to come in, share your opinions, whatever the case may be. I don't know what sort of like letter they actually sent him, but he basically declined it, or his lawyers declined it for him. And, what's going on here? We should be holding people accountable, not giving them passes. And to think that this whole thing might go by and Trump might not actually ever face any questioning is a problem. You can go ahead and try to play it now.
President Trump may not know a lot about the framers, but they certainly knew a lot about him. Given the framers' intense focus on danger to elections and the peaceful transfer of power, it is inconceivable that they designed impeachment to be a dead letter in the president's final days in office, when opportunities to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power would be most tempting and most dangerous, as we just saw. Thus, as a matter of history and original understanding, there is no merit to President Trump's claim that he can incite an insurrection and then insist weeks later that the Senate lacks the power to even hear evidence at a trial, to even hold a trial.
Yeah. I mean, the peaceful transition of power is critical to having a functioning democracy, right? This is not a monarchy. I could call it something else. Not a monarchy. I could call it something that starts with an F. You know, there's an O in there too as well. But, you know, on paper, this is supposed to be a democratic country. And the peaceful transition of power, when that is threatened, that needs to be taken seriously. And what we're seeing right now, even though 6 members of the GOP and the Senate voted with Democrats, okay, the fact that we didn't have more, the fact that you didn't have a clear majority and don't have a clear majority of Republicans who are willing to go with the Democrats on this says something very destructive about the state of American politics and how there's a certain faction, certain right-wing faction within the United States political apparatus, if you will, that is willing to see this country significantly harmed in order to maintain power, because they know what this does to their brand if Trump goes down. If Trump goes down, he's taking the entire Republican Party with him. So whenever you are ready for the next video, just go ahead and play that for me. Oh, this one is good.
Boy, unlike Belknap, as we know, President Trump was not impeached for run-of-the-mill corruption, misconduct. He was impeached for inciting a violent insurrection, an insurrection where people died in this building, an insurrection that desecrated our seat of government. And if Congress were just to stand completely aside in the face of such an extraordinary crime against the republic, it would invite future presidents to use their power without any fear of accountability. And none of us, I know this, none of us, no matter our party or our politics, wants that. Boy, unlike Belknap, as we know.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's really at stake here ultimately is the future of this country, quite frankly. This country has 2 clear paths. Either it is going to go down the path of holding people accountable, and when I say people, I'm talking about the entire political system, but that's not what's on trial right now. The person that's on trial right now is Donald Trump. So we can either go down the path of holding presidents accountable when they commit clear acts of incitement of violence. People died that day. People died. Like, think about that for a second. There were people that went to work that morning thinking, you know, this is just about to be another run-of-the-mill day at work, and that was their last day on this earth. And to think that you have people in Congress right now, and I'm like low-key like choking up a little bit just even thinking about this, because it's kind of sick when you think about it. That you even have people in Congress right now who are saying, yeah, but to that. that goes beyond problematic. Like, problematic is like somebody in power saying something that they shouldn't be saying, and they're held accountable for it. That's problematic. This is the survivability of this country. Don has a really good quote, and Dem's opening was a phenom. I haven't a clue what message 45 lawyers were trying to convey. I feel dumber for having listened to 45's lawyers. What they believe to be valid arguments. Hey, that's, I'm just glad you guys are here to listen to like all of that over again, because you could be doing anything right now outside of listening to bad Republican arguments, right? But you're here with me, and you're on this channel. So thank you for that. Thank you for your service. For real. But go ahead and play the next video, David.
That I know some of you know, and some of you have actually spoken with recently. Up until just a few weeks ago, he was a recognized champion of the view that the Constitution authorizes the impeachment of former officials, and that is Professor Jonathan Turley. Let me show you what I mean. These are his words. First, in a very detailed study, thorough study, he explained that, quote, the resignation from office does not prevent trial on articles of impeachment. That's Professor Turley's words. Same piece. He celebrated the Belknap trial. He described it as a corrective measure that helped the system regain legitimacy. He wrote another article. He's written several on this topic. This one is actually, it's a 146-page study, very detailed. And in that study, he said, quote, that the decision in Belknap was correct in its view that impeachment historically had extended to former officials, such as Warren Hastings, who you heard Lead Manager Raskin describe. In fact, as you can see, Professor Turley argued that the House could have impeached and the Senate could have tried Richard Nixon after he resigned. His quote on this, very telling, quote, future presidents could not assume that mere resignation would avoid a trial of their conduct in the United States Senate. Finally, last quote from Professor Turley, that no man in no circumstance can escape the account which he owes to the laws of his country. Not my words, not Lead Manager Raskin's words, Professor Jonathan Turley's words. I agree with him because he's exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him too, because he's a professional with regards to this particular topic. And thank you, Adrienne. Thank you for that, for sure. And so Trump, so let's see. This whole entire argument that Trump can't be held accountable because he's no longer in office and the articles of impeachment were filed or submitted, if you will. I'm not sure about the proper verbiage, but you guys know what I mean. They were submitted after he left office. No, he's not going to get away with that. And that's exactly what Republicans want people to think. See, part of this is not only about getting Trump off. This is also about continuing, or at least extending, the big lie, if you will. Because they want people to think, and this is something you will hear a lot of people on the right say, they want people to think that this is just some sort of witch hunt to go after Trump, right? And that they don't have the constitutional, or at least the Democrats don't have the constitutional authority to do what they're doing. No, they do. And luckily today, as you all know, and as I said at the beginning of this stream, they are going forward with this. So this whole question about whether or not this is constitutional, yada, 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 it is 100% constitutional. And I am definitely here for it because, look, I don't know if Trump is going to be convicted or not. We have to wait and see. right? It's possible he won't be. And then even if he's convicted, they still have to add something else to it to say that he can't run for office again. Because he was only a one-term president, as you all know, so he could technically run for office one more time. We have to put our foot down. The Democrats have to wield power, and I know they'll need Republicans, right? But they have to do something, and this is something. And we cannot be a country that allows like the level of political violence that happened on the 6th happen again without consequences and repercussions. So whenever you are ready, while you're pulling that video up, thank you, Patrick Emmett. He said, keep up the good work, guys. Thank you for joining. And thank you, Joshua, for the comments. And Tariq Muhammad says, I'm late, but yes, plutocracy, of course. And it looks like we have the video ready, so you can go ahead and play it.
Detail the many reasons why the argument that President Trump advocates for here today is wrong. That President Trump advocates for here today is wrong. I just want to close.
Okay. So while David gets that situated, I will come back here. Thank you for the super chat, CC. And Tyler says it's buffering a lot. Yeah, we're getting the tech issues worked out. And then one commenter, Shade, aka Shade Dragon, says racism contributes to fascism and authoritarianism, which is a credible bodily threat to literally everyone, regardless of color, gender, religion, or anything else. Yep. And Moore says, agreed, political violence is a stretch, but even before that, I understand free speech that can, but can we at least have a base for truth? The lies just turn some people into zombies. I mean, Trump definitely instigated political violence for sure. He will claim that he didn't, but he definitely instigated it. And so, I mean, like I said, that's why he needs to be held accountable. Are we good to go, David?
Having a little bit of difficulty. Hold on one second.
Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of videos to go over today, guys. And because this whole thing today was what, 4 hours long? There's a lot of content to cover for sure. And this is, I really like doing this because it's I've always thought that while David is getting the videos up and running, I've always thought that politics was sort of like the source of individual power in America. And what I mean by that is the voting process empowers people and to hold elected officials accountable. So when I see stuff like this going on, I'm like, okay, something is at least working right within government. We're doing something right. And none of this would actually be happening were it not for Georgia. You see what I'm saying? Like, so voting matters for sure. And voter suppression, which is a whole different topic entirely, is, you see why that's a thing now. They want to prevent accountability by all costs, especially accountability from certain groups of people. So tell me whenever you are ready. And White Rabbit says, is this show usually at this time? I like the format and Brian's political analysis. Usually I do breaking news videos. Like, so it kind of just depends on when the news breaks. So it's not really like a technical show per se. But typically we try to shoot for between like 4 and 5, and I'm looking to even get it to a little bit before that sometimes, but it just depends. It fluctuates.
Have explained in great detail the many reasons why the argument that President Trump advocates for here today is wrong. I just want to close with a note about why it's dangerous. Lead manager Raskin explained that impeachment exists to protect the American people from officials who abuse their power, who betray them. It exists for a case just like this one. Honestly, it is hard to imagine a clearer example of how a president could abuse his office, inciting violence against a co-equal branch of government while seeking to remain in power after losing an election. Sitting back and watching it unfold. We all know the consequences. Like every one of you, I was in the Capitol on January 6th. I was on the floor with lead manager Raskin. Like every one of you, I was evacuated as this violent mob stormed the Capitol's gates. What you experienced that day, what we experienced that day, what our country experienced that day is the framers' worst nightmare come to life. Presidents can't inflame insurrection in their final weeks and then walk away like nothing happened. And yet that is the rule that President Trump asks you to adopt. I urge you, we urge you to decline his request, to vindicate the Constitution, to let us try this case.
So that was definitely, oh, cool, perfect. All right, that was pretty powerful, and you know, I'm just gonna repeat what I've already said. It's people in power are so adverse to accountability. They're so incredibly adverse to it because accountability means the entire system can be, how can I word it? Accountability means people in power are answerable to everybody else. And a lot of them don't believe that, especially Trump. Trump is the epitome of arrogance. He's the epitome of privileged, entitled people in power who think that they can just get away with anything. And there are many people within the Republican Party, really dare say the overwhelming majority of them, not even dare say, like that's really what it is, who actually are willing to go along with him with that. Think about that for a second. Think about what Trump instigated, what his supporters instigated, that led to the events on the 6th of January. And think about their reaction. They want to talk about unity. We're supposed to unify with y'all while you all run and protect the most criminal president in modern American history. There is no president, none, who did what Trump did. There's no equivalency at all. At least not, like I said, not in this recent era. I'm not going as far back as like the Civil War or anything like that. Right? And even then it wasn't Lincoln instigating the Civil War. You see what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, it's madness. It's madness to think that there are people who are ready to let him off the hook. that is absolutely insane to me. Go ahead and play the next video.
Now, virtually every American who saw those events unfold on television was absolutely horrified by the events of January 6th. But we also know how President Trump himself felt about the attack. He told us. Here's what he tweeted at 6:01 as the Capitol was in shambles and as dozens of police officers and other law enforcement officers lay battered and bruised and bloodied. Here's what he said: "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever." Every time I read that tweet, it chills me to the core. The President of the United States sided with the insurrectionists. He celebrated their cause. He validated their attack. He told them, remember this day forever. Hours after they marched through these halls looking to assassinate Vice President Pence, the Speaker of the House, and any of us they could find. Given all that, it's no wonder that President Trump would rather talk about jurisdiction and a supposed January exception, rather than talk about what happened on January 6th. Make no mistake, his arguments are dead wrong.
I actually forgot about that tweet. That is insane. And the timestamp on that tweet was at, I think it said 6:01 p.m. Let me see. Yeah, that's right. 6:01 p.m. on the day of, right? So
For so long.
that is crazy to me. Like, you had a president of the United States who watched the U.S. Capitol. This isn't funny. I'm just thinking about like how I don't, like, the words escape me. Like, you had a president of the United States who, according to reports, was giddy. He was like sitting there like happy, like, yeah, look at them. Didn't pardon anybody, by the way. He's letting them rot like in prison, right? But he actually sat there and was happy about what happened. And then he took to Twitter and he posted this. What kind of leader are you? That's not leadership. That is not leadership. That is absolutely disgusting. Especially now that we know that people died. Now, I don't know that he knew that at the moment, but that's not really important. Like, really, honestly, he probably still would have tweeted that regardless, because that just seems like the type of person he is on the inside, right? This is a man who bragged that he could shoot somebody and still get support. So do you seriously think that he cares that people die protecting the Capitol? No. And as he said, you had, not only did you have the people who died, right? Representative David, I can't pronounce, Cicilline? I don't know. I might be mispronouncing that. Democrat from Rhode Island. Not only did he say what he said, but he also said something pretty critical. That could have been a lot worse than it actually was. And I've said that previously when I talked about this subject. Okay, you had AOC who's given her statement. You've had other Democrats in the House who have talked about what they were going through at the time. This is serious, and it's a good thing it didn't end up worse than it did. But I don't want to drag it on for too long. You can go ahead and play the next video.
In the same vein, President Trump and his lawyers argued that he shouldn't be impeached because it will set a bad precedent for impeaching others. But that slippery slope argument is also incorrect. For centuries, the prevailing view has been that former officials are subject to impeachment, and you just heard a full discussion of that. The House has repeatedly acknowledged that fact. But in the vast majority of cases, the House has rightly recognized that an official's resignation or departure makes the extraordinary step of impeachment unnecessary and maybe even unwise. As the House manager rightly explained in the Belknap case, and I quote, "There is no likelihood that we shall ever unlimber the clumsy and bulky monster piece of ordnance to take aim at an object from which all danger has gone by," end quote. President Trump's case, though, is different. The danger has not gone by. His threat to democracy makes any prior abuse by any government official pale in comparison. Moreover, allowing his conduct to pass without the most decisive response would itself create an extraordinary danger to the nation. Inviting further abuse of power and signaling that the Congress of the United States is unable or unwilling to respond to insurrection incited by the president.
Yeah, so as he said, if the Senate doesn't act, this is an invitation for something worse. Okay, whoever the next future Republican is almost certainly going to be a Trumpkin. Like, he or she is almost certain to be someone following in the footsteps of Donald Trump. Right? I mean, you would hope not, but that's not a guarantee. So what message are you sending in the Senate if you say that the president can incite violence on his way out, and that's A-okay? We're not going to do anything about that. Is not holding, a president accountable, Franco says, invitation to a gangster nation. Yeah, something like that. Is not holding a president accountable so important to the Senate and Senate Republicans specifically? I'm not talking about the Democrats. That they are ready to empower a president and give a president or set a precedent for a president to do something potentially catastrophic in the future. Imagine someone like Trump, but smarter. I'm worried about that. I don't know about y'all. And like you said, also, there's no comparison to Trump. There really isn't. Like I said, not in recent times. So the Senate has to respond. Trump needs to be convicted, and he needs to be prevented from holding office in the future. All right? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do your freaking jobs. I was about to say something else. But whenever you are ready, David, you can go ahead and play the next video.
Particularly as President Trump and his counsel have boasted on TV that to counter the undisputed evidence of what actually happened in this case, you'll see video clips. They'll show video clips of other politicians, including Democratic politicians, using what they consider incendiary language. Apparently, they think this will establish some sort of equivalency, or that it will show in contrast that President Trump's statements at the Save America rally weren't so bad. Like so much of what President Trump's lawyers might say today, that's a gimmick. It's a parlor game meant to inflame partisan hostility and play on our divisions. So let me be crystal clear. President Trump was not impeached because of the words he used, viewed in isolation, without context, or beyond the pale. Plenty of other politicians have used strong language. Donald J. Trump was president of the United States. He sought to overturn a presidential election that had been upheld by every single court to consider it. He spent months insisting to his base that the only way he could lose was a dangerous, wide-ranging conspiracy against them and America itself. He relentlessly attempted to persuade his followers that the peaceful transfer of power that was taking place in the Capitol was an abomination that had to be stopped at all costs. He flirted with groups like the Proud Boys, telling them to stand back and stand by, while endorsing violence and sparking death threats to his opponents.
Yeah, so he just went over quite a bit there. Yeah, stand back and stand by. That's that he definitely said that. Trump has been inciting violence like for a while, if you really think about it. Even like going back to Charlottesville, right, where he tried to play both sides and say that there were good people on both sides. No. But I'm not taking it back to that far, just keeping it on topic. Yeah, this is not, as he was saying, as he was laying out, this is not about free speech, right? This is about, I keep like a broken record, this is about accountability of powerful people, powerful men. Okay. And people like his defenders who are saying that, oh, you just don't like what Trump said. No, we don't like that people stormed the Capitol. We don't like that people stormed the Capitol and killed some folks. That's what we don't like. And you've even had like Capitol, police officers that have committed suicide, at least one that I know of, because of what happened that day. What is this? Do they go, and when I say they, I'm talking about Republicans, do they jump through these same hoops when it comes to defending the Trayvon Martins of America? No. They say when it comes to black men, they say we deserve what's coming to us, pretty much. No defense whatsoever. You don't, you stole something from a convenience store, Michael Brown, or not really, but that's what they were claiming, right? But even if he did, you stole something, well, you got shot, so there's it was justified. They will justify murder of some people, but when it comes to Trump, the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the country, the most powerful man in the world, who has the power to launch weapons, the most dangerous, destructive, catastrophic weapons in the world. All of a sudden, there's a different standard. When we know that he is guilty, we saw it with our own eyes. So whenever you are ready, by the way, I saw a super chat come in. Thank you for the super chat, Leah. So whenever you are ready, you can go ahead and play the next video.
William Faulkner famously wrote that the past is never dead. But this isn't even the past. This just happened. It's still happening. Look around you as you come to the Capitol and come to work. I really do not believe that our attention span is so short, that our sense of duty so frail, our factional loyalty so all-consuming, that the president can provoke an attack on Congress itself and get away with it just because it occurred near the end of his term. After a betrayal like this, there cannot be unity without accountability. And this is exactly what the Constitution calls for. The framers' original understanding, this chamber's own precedent, and the very words used in the Constitution all confirm unquestionably, indisputably, that President Trump must stand trial for his high crimes and misdemeanors against the American people. We cannot continue down the path of partisanship and division that has turned the Capitol into an armed fortress. Senators, it now falls to you to bring our country together by holding this trial, and once all the evidence is before you, by delivering justice. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment, Nature Boy. It's a pretty cool name. If you want real, you to follow up with his comments on the video. I mean, if you want real unity, Trump needs to be held accountable. I'm going to keep repeating that because that's ultimately what it boils down to. Are we a nation that actually believes all people are equal? Because this is like also an inequality issue. Because when you say that the president of the United States is above accountability, and the president, since they're just on their way out, they can do whatever the hell they want to do on their way out, essentially, even inciting violence. When you say that, and then you hold poor people accountable, you hold the working class accountable, that's not equality. Like that's a, like people say, a two-tiered system of justice. Sorry. And luckily, in this particular case, the Democrats are doing their job. They're doing what they need to do. It's the Republicans, outside of 6. It's the Republicans that are preventing this from going forward, if that makes sense. So this is just crazy, man. It's sad. It's really, really sad that this country, I don't know, just play the next video. Like, because this is kind of like low key upset me a little bit. So I'm just going to continue.
I want to say something personal about the stakes of this decision, whether President Trump can stand trial and be held to account for inciting insurrection against us. This trial is personal indeed for every senator, for every member of the House, every manager, all of our staff, the Capitol Police, the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police, the National Guard, maintenance and custodial crews, the print journalists and TV people who were here, and all of our families and friends. And I hope this trial reminds America how personal democracy is, and how personal is the loss of democracy, too. Distinguished members of the Senate, my youngest daughter, Tabitha, was there with me on Wednesday, January 6th. It was the day after we buried her brother, our son.
Oh, no.
Tommy, the saddest day of our lives. Also, there was my son-in-law, Hank, who's married to our oldest daughter, Hannah, and I consider him a son too, even though he eloped with my daughter and didn't tell us what they were going to do. But it was in the middle of COVID-19. But the reason they came with me that Wednesday, January 6th, was because they wanted to be together with me in the middle of a devastating week for our family. And I told them I had to go back to work because we were counting electoral votes that day on January 6th. It was our constitutional duty. And I invited them instead to come with me to witness this historic event, the peaceful transfer of power in America. And they said they heard that President Trump was calling on his followers to come to Washington to protest, and they asked me directly, would it be safe? Would it be safe? And I told them, of course it should be safe. This is the Capitol.
That is so incredibly messed up.
There's more. Hold on a second. Let me finish the story.
Yeah, that's so incredibly messed up.
The
man.
Chief of Staff, Julie Kagan, was...
Go ahead.
Never forget the sound of pounding on the door like a battering ram. The most haunting sound I ever heard, and I will never forget it. My Chief of Staff, Julie Kagan, was with Tabitha and Hank locked and barricaded in that office. The kids hiding under the desk, placing what they thought were their final texts and whispered phone calls to say their goodbyes. They thought they were going to die. My son-in-law had never even been to the Capitol before. And when they were finally rescued, over an hour later by Capitol officers, and we were together, I hugged them and I apologized, and I told my daughter Tabitha, who's 24 and a brilliant algebra teacher in Teach for America. Now, I told her how sorry I was, and I promised her that it would not be like this again the next time she came back to the Capitol with me. And you know what she said? She said, "Dad, I don't want to come back to the Capitol again." Of all the terrible, brutal things I saw and I heard on that day, and since then, that one hit me the hardest. That and watching someone use an American flagpole, with the flag still on it, to spear and pummel one of our police officers ruthlessly, mercilessly, tortured by a pole with a flag on it that he was defending with his very life. People died that day.
Yeah, as Catherine just said, that
In their own lives.
that gives you chills listening to it. Especially keeping in mind what I just said a second ago about how it could have been a lot worse. And in his testimony, his account lays that bare, right? Like you all see, or we all see what was at stake. He had his family there. Like, imagine, like, it's bad enough, like, just being empathetic and putting yourself in his shoes. It's bad enough if you're there as an elected official. It's even worse if you're there with your family. Right? I would have lost my mind. Like if any of them even gotten close to me, I don't know what I would have done. I might not have made it out of there, because my number one priority would have been protecting my family, as I'm sure that's what was going through his mind as well. But Republicans don't think that this is important enough to do anything about. You can go ahead with the next video.
2 officers have taken their own lives. Senators, this cannot be our future. This cannot be the future of America. We cannot have presidents inciting and mobilizing mob violence against our government and our institutions because they refuse to accept the will of the people under the Constitution of the United States. Much less can we create a new January exception in our precious, beloved Constitution that prior generations have died for and fought for, so the corrupt presidents have several weeks to get away with whatever it is they want to do. History does not support a January exception in any way, so why would we invent one for the future? We close, Mr. President, and reserve your time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about that other than I'm glad the worst outcome didn't happen. And it's what have we become as a nation if we allow Trump to just get away? I mean, he's not going to go to jail, but if we just allow Trump to face no consequences whatsoever, what have we become? And I know that doesn't apply to everybody, of course. But we all live in the same country. And it is our elected officials, specifically the ones on the right, making a decision that puts the entire country at risk. That cannot be allowed. And as people, I've seen people commenting, we won't forget. No, we definitely won't. And this is why all of this talk about unity is completely premature. Go ahead with the next video. No, these guys.
When I was growing up in suburban Philadelphia, my parents were big fans of Senator Everett Dirksen from Illinois. And Senator Dirksen recorded a series of lectures that my parents had on a record. And we still know what records are, right? On the thing you put the needle down on and you play it.
What in the world is he
And
talking?
here's little Bruce, 8, 9, 10 years old, listening to this back in the late 60s. And I would be listening to that voice. If you ever heard Everett Dirksen's voice, it's the most commanding, gravelly voice that just oozes belief and sincerity. Must have been a phenomenal United States senator. He doesn't talk about ordinary people as we do in the law. We apply the ordinary person standard. He talks about extraordinary people. He talks about gallant men, was the name of the album. And now, of course, in the sign of the times, gallant men and women.
What the hell did I just watch?
Their families.
What is this man talking about? We're having a real conversation about something that happened, and this man is talking about albums. I have no word. I don't even know where to go with that. But you can go ahead and play the next video.
Their families. They love the states that they represent. There isn't a member in this room who has not used the term, I represent the great state of fill in the blank. Why? Because they're all great? Yeah. But you think yours is greater than others because these are your people. These are the people that sent you here to do their work. They trusted you with the responsibility of representative government. You know, I feel proud to know my senators, Senator Casey up here in the back, Senator Toomey over to the left. You know, it's funny. This is an aside, but it's funny. You ever notice how when you're talking or you hear others talking about you when you're home in your state, they will say, you know, I talked to my senator, or I talked to somebody on the staff of my senator. It's always my senator. Why is it that we say my senator? We say that because the people you represent are proud of their senators.
I'm sorry. Oh boy. Man, I needed a laugh. This man is hilarious. Once again, like he appears to just be rambling. Like, I don't know that he actually has a point to make. You can go ahead with the next video.
So senators are patriots. Senators are family men and women. They're fierce advocates for the great state in which they represent. And somewhere far down that list of attributes, way below patriot and way below love of family and country and way below fierce advocates for their states, far down, at least that's what I thought anyway, and I still think that. Somewhere far down that list, senators have some obligation to be partisans.
Yeah, you can honestly just go right through his videos because he's not making any coherent sense right now.
Don't know about off the top of my head, but each one of them, once there was the vacuum created that the greatest deliberative bodies, the Senate of Greece sitting in Athens, the Senate of Rome, the moment that they devolved into such partisanship, it's not as though they ceased to exist. They ceased to exist as representative democracy, both replaced by totalitarianism. Don't know about off the top of my head, but each one of them days, the honorable gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Sass, I saw that he faced backlash back home because of a vote he made some weeks ago. That the political party was complaining about a decision he made as a United States Senator. You know, it's interesting because I don't want to steal the thunder from the other lawyers, but Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. And just maybe Senator Sass is on to something. You'll hear about what it is that the Nebraska courts have to say about the issue that you all are deciding this week. They seem to be some pretty smart jurists in Nebraska, and I can't believe a United States Senator doesn't know that.
Okay, okay. This man is he. I want to say one thing, okay, because I'm kind of like peeping like where he's going, attempting to go with this. This is not about partisanship.
He's guilting the senators. He's trying to sweet talk.
That's what I was saying. Like, this is not about partisanship. This is people doing their jobs, which honestly, he has no argument, really. Like, that's really what this is about. Because the Democrats' case, the House's case, it's a clear-cut case. Open and shut. Like, Trump should be, well, he was impeached, but he should be convicted. Like, this is their attempt to make it seem like there's an argument, but there's really not. So he's just up there rambling, talking about Nebraska, talking about albums, talking about his little cat at his house or whatever the heck else he's going to talk about. I'm glad I missed this part of the trial because I didn't actually sit and watch CNN the whole way through. I missed this part. Thankfully, this is like the first time I'm seeing this. You can go ahead and play the next video. Now he's drinking. He's thinking about what other BS he can come up with.
And the reason that I am having trouble with the argument is the American people just spoke.
He's having trouble with the argument because he doesn't have one.
Just changed administrations. So in the light most favorable to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle here, their system works. The people are smart enough in the light most favorable to them. They're smart enough to pick a new administration if they don't like the old one. And they just did. And he's down there at Pennsylvania Avenue now, probably wondering how come none of my stuff is happening up at the Capitol. And
was that it? Yeah, you can just go to the next video.
I'll be quite frank with you. We changed what we were going to do on account that we thought that the House manager's presentation was well done. And I wanted you to know that we have responses to those things. I thought that what the first part of the case was, which was the equivalent of a motion to dismiss, was going to be about jurisdiction alone. And one of the fellows who spoke for the House managers, who's a former criminal defense attorney, seemed to suggest that there's something nefarious that we were discussing jurisdiction and trying to get the case dismissed. But this is where it happens in the case because jurisdiction is the first thing that has to be found. We have counter arguments to everything that they raised, and you will hear them later on in the case from Mr. Van der Veen and from myself. Chamber actually think that President Trump committed a criminal offense. And let's understand, a high crime is a felony and a misdemeanor is a misdemeanor. The words haven't changed that much over the time. After he's out of office, you go and arrest him. So there is no opportunity where the president of the United States can run rampant in January, the end of his term, and just go away scot-free. The Department of Justice does know what to do with such people. And so far, I haven't seen any activity in that direction. And not only that, the people who stormed this building and breached it were not accused of conspiring with the president. Side of the chamber actually think that President.
Oh, before you go to the next guy. Oh, now he's drinking. Okay, that's Trump's attorney number 2. So one thing, this just came to my mind as I was watching it. How low do you have to be like Trump's attorney? Like that. I hope he is getting paid, and I pray that he got in advance because Trump is just unreliable, and like Trump is clearly not getting his money's worth because these guys suck. But go ahead, go with the next video.
They want to put you through a 16-hour presentation over 2 days, focusing on this as if it were some sort of blood sport. And to what end? For healing? For unity? For accountability? Not for any of those. For surely there are much better ways to achieve each. It is again for pure, raw, misguided partisanship that makes them believe playing to our worst instincts somehow is good. They don't need to show you movies to show you that the riot happened here. We will stipulate that it happened, and you know all about it. This is a process fueled irresponsibly by base hatred by these House managers and those who gave them their charge, and they are willing to sacrifice our national character to advance their hatred and their fear that one day they might not be the party in power. They have a very different view of democracy and freedom from Justice Jackson.
So he's just throwing out random words. Base hatred. No, this is accountability.
Removed.
Go ahead with the video. So that was an incredible image to stop. Like the video stopped at an incredible point. As you all are seeing, they don't have an argument, and that's not surprising. You know, we can keep going through these videos like over and over and over again, but we know the outcome. We know the outcome because the trial is no longer happening right now. The trial ended, and we can sit here and watch these fools make these incredibly bad arguments. Okay, bad arguments that Republicans actually want because you're going to have Republicans that agree with this craziness anyway. But calling this saying that this is like partisan or hatred, no. This is people doing their job as they should be doing. Okay, and like I said, we know the ending. So we know that they didn't win these arguments anyway. Thankfully, enough people saw through this. Go ahead and play the next video.
Impeached and convicted for high crimes and misdemeanors, they shall be removed. Absolutely nothing about this rule implies, let alone requires, that former officials who can still face disqualification are immune from impeachment and conviction. That's what they say. They told you that today. In other words, so the argument goes, a president no longer holding office does not moot the entirety of remedies afforded by impeachment. This, however, also flies in the face of both the plain meaning of the text and the canons of statutory interpretation. First of all, the managers once again simply choose to ignore the text. Even in the passage that the managers cite, the word shall does, to put it mildly, imply a requirement. An imperative such that an impeachment in which removal would be impossible is invalid. Shall means shall. The Supreme Court has made clear that when a statute uses the word shall, Congress has imposed a mandatory duty upon the subject of the command, as in shall remove. Indeed, the mandatory shall normally creates an obligation impervious to judicial discretion. And wherever the Constitution commands, discretion terminates. Shall means mandatory and shall be.
Okay. So he was basically arguing in a failed attempt, as like I said, we know the ending, that the Senate didn't have the constitutionality to go through with what they were doing, which we now know they do. And as the Democrats made clear when they gave their opening arguments, based on things that have been written in the past, no, they do have the authority to do that, to go through with this. So I am glad that they are going. I'm sounding repetitive, but I'm glad that they are definitely going through with this. We don't know what's going to happen. They may not convict Trump. They should. Convicting Trump is a step in the right direction. Okay. Now, if Trump is not convicted, in the short term, I don't really think anything major is going to happen. But in the long term, it is setting an incredibly terrible precedent. And Republicans, because I know Democrats are going to be on the right page here, but Republicans are basically seeding future political violence by not following through, by not holding Trump accountable. And we just can't allow that, family. It's not a whole lot we can do about it, but we as a country, like the politicians that we elected, they cannot allow this. They cannot allow this to go through. They have to make their arguments. And I think based on what we have seen today and the clips that we have shown you guys today, I am much more confident that the Democrats' arguments are going to be stronger than the Republican arguments. Because the Republicans are getting up there, they're talking about whatever. They're talking about a whole lot of nothing, right? The Democrats have a strong argument. They have a strong case. It's now going to be a matter of whether or not enough senators will agree with that case. And Trump's lawyers kept talking about partisanship. The people who are being partisan are the Republicans. It is an act of rank partisanship to side with your party and side with your former president because he has an R next to his name. They're the ones being partisans, not the Democrats, right? So I'm glad you guys sat through all of this. We've been going on for almost an hour and 20 minutes, but we do have to cut it short at some point because they kept going back and forth, and we'll be here, as much as I like to talk, we'll be here 3 hours if we go over quite literally everything, especially since they talked for 4 hours. But before I end today's stream, I do want to read some comments here. So let's see what we have. Regardless of whether Trump had intent or not, he didn't have it's grave incompetence on his part. Should have known the intelligence about threats of violence. Bilal Salam says, yes, exactly. It's not about if they agree or not. It's about if they think they'll be elected after voting for or against. They're protecting their own hides. Let's see, what else do we have? Lipsha says, thank you, Brian and David. Well, thank you for joining us. And then let's see. Twitch did come. Oh, well, Twitch was up for me. Let me go back. Twitch does not like working with me for some reason. And Pranay says the only lawyers who would argue democracy equals dictatorship and Trump equals democracy, they are the only ones for sure. MDJG, thank you for the super chat. He says, how many votes for conviction? I want to say it's 61, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's a simple majority, but it's definitely something that they'll need Republican support for. And then Jermaine Anderson says Trump might change the laws to become a dictator if he got back into office like Putin. Hopefully it won't come to that. And thank you for joining us on and on it goes, aka Shade Dragon. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Doing this takes a lot of, it takes a good amount of work. And there's a lot of preparation involved. The producers, they definitely have a lot on their plate as well. And so it's a production that, that a lot goes into, a lot of work and a lot of energy goes into. So when you guys send in like the super chats and you guys leave comments and you share the video and you hit the like button and things like that, it goes a long way, right? A little bit can do a lot. And I like doing this. I find this fun, especially when we have ridiculous Republicans to listen to. They make the day go by so much quicker. So I don't want to belabor the video too much.
We got one more clip. Yep. I just want to throw this one in just to get a kick out of a very short clip about Trump's reaction to the day's events.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think that was a strong opening argument. And then to have the first attorney admit that he believed the House impeachment managers did a good job also was confusing to a lot of people on the president's team. But yes, Trump was not happy with that performance. He was borderline screaming over what was going on as he was talking to people about this. Not think that was a strong opening argument. And then to have.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Of course he didn't like it because they sucked. Because he hired people who are only there for the money. Like, let's just keep it real. They don't have an argument. They know they don't have an argument. There's too much stacked against Trump. And it's really ultimately coming down to whether or not Republicans are going to make a partisan decision. That's pretty much it. So I have no doubt whatsoever that Donald Trump is scared out of his mind right now, as he should be, right? Not because he's going to go to jail. That's not going to happen. But because he is actually being held accountable. And Pranay says they are fascists. Lying is the point. Yeah, that's exactly true. That is the point. And he hired some bad liars. If you hire lawyers and they're getting up there talking about music albums, you've already lost. Your argument is already over. I don't care what sort of way you can tie in albums to your argument. That should not be coming up at all. So you could already tell that they were like fishing for things to say because they're like, okay, we're getting paid to be up here. So we got to say something, So noun, verb, 9/11 or something along those lines. So yeah, like I said, thank you for joining me. You guys will definitely see me tomorrow. I think I might do this again tomorrow. And I will I think I'll be live during the trial. Because listening to these guys in the moment is just, it's just amazing. It's just so fun listening to this. So, yeah, my name is Brian Lewis. As you see, follow me on Twitter @_BlackIntellect, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show. and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.